Hi there everyone, are you all ready for a lesson in pronunciation? Okay, just let me know if you're there and we can begin the lesson. Hi there, if anybody's there just say hi. Hi Adam, how you doing? Okay, so this session is on pronunciation and we're going to, hi Julio, hi Julio. This session is all about pronunciation and I'm going to share with you how to pronounce aviation English verbs in the past tense. Okay, so have you all got your handouts ready, or have you got your handout open on one of your devices so I can refer to it during the training? Okay, so I don't know if you're aware, but the ICAO test is all about listening and speaking. There's no writing component at all. The only reading you'll have to do for some tests is reading the instructions. Okay, so we're going to start off today with pronunciation. So pronunciation is often an area of English teaching that is not given enough attention. Okay, you may not know this, but if you mispronounce words in the past simple tense, it can be seen as a grammar error. Okay, you might think you're pronouncing the word correctly, but if it's incorrect, it'll be down as a grammar error and a pronunciation error. Okay, so on your handout you should have a photograph. The photograph is of the landing on the Hudson River. Okay, do you see that photograph? Okay, Cerulean, nice to see you. So, who can tell me the difference between land and ditch? What is the difference between those two verbs? Land and ditch. Okay, well, land is when your plane lands on a surface. Okay, you land on the runway, or you land on a road. Okay, and ditch is when you have a water landing, and they're usually not very successful. Okay, the Hudson River ditching was amazing, and it was amazing that everybody survived. Okay, so we're going to look at some words, some verbs. Yeah, ditch is landing on the water, correct. So we're going to look at some words that relate to this picture. Okay, yeah, Vladimir, you land on the ground and you ditch in the water. Okay, so verbs related to this photograph, I'm going to first pronounce them for you in the present tense, and then I'll pronounce them again for you in the past simple tense. Okay, so the verbs related to this photo are land, ditch, survive, evacuate, arrive, and climb. Okay, so when you speak in the present tense, do you feel that you are able to pronounce these words correctly? What do you think? When you're using the present tense, do you feel that you can pronounce them correctly? Okay, you may do. So what we're going to look at today is pronouncing them correctly in the past tense. Okay, Now, all these verbs are regular verbs and they all end in ed in the past simple tense. And many people forget to pronounce the ed ending of regular verbs. So there are 3 ways to pronounce the endings of these verbs. One is id, as in id, id. One is t, as in the letter T, the t sound. And one is just the d sound on its own. Okay, so the first word we're going to look at is land. So in the past simple tense, it's pronounced landed. Okay, landed. So the end sound is id. The second one we're going to look at is survived. Okay, survived. The end sound is d. And if you notice, when I pronounce that word, I actually lower my chin. When I lower my chin, it's easier to pronounce. Okay, survived. So you can try that as well. All right, so we've got landed, ditched, survived, evacuated. Okay, evacuated, climbed, arrived. Okay, so now I'm going to read them out again, and I want you to say them aloud if you can, if you're in a place where nobody's going to laugh at you, and if they do laugh at you, who cares? You need the practice, okay? ICAO test, like I mentioned, is all about speaking. So the first word again is landed, the end sound being id, landed. Then ditched, ditched. Okay, you can see the form of my lips when I'm saying those words. Ditched, hi Lito. Then survived, evacuated, arrived, and climbed. Okay, remembering to lower your chin when you say the d sound. Okay. Now let me show you these verbs in a sentence and read them out for you. Okay. The plane landed on the Hudson. So you should be able to clearly hear the id sound. The plane landed on the Hudson. Ditched is a t sound, yes. Okay, ditched. You can probably hear it very clearly when I say it, okay? Ditched. The t sound is quite easy to hear. The one that's the most challenging usually is the d sound, okay? And especially if you are Chinese Cerulean, it's quite common to pronounce everything as the t sound, okay? So you need to differentiate between the t, d, and id, okay? Okay, so we've got the plane landed on the Hudson. The plane ditched in the Hudson. All passengers survived. All passengers and crew evacuated. The rescue boats arrived quickly. Okay. The passengers climbed onto the boats. The plane was lifted out of the river. The emergency ditching was reported on the news all over the world. Okay, you can see here that I mentioned the plane landed on the Hudson. The reason it's on the Hudson here is because we're talking about the surface of the water on the Hudson. We use the word ditch when we're talking about in the water, okay? So evacuated is the id sound. Okay, on your handout you should have the correct letter mark next to the verb, okay? So landed is the id sound, id. Ditched is the t sound. Survived is the D sound. Evacuated is the id sound. Arrived is the D sound, lowering the chin. And climbed is the D sound also. Okay, so now I'd like you to listen to those sentences again and repeat them. Okay, so the plane landed on the Hudson. The plane ditched in the Hudson. All passengers survived. All passengers and crew evacuated. The rescue boats arrived quickly. The passengers climbed onto the boats. The plane was lifted out of the river. The emergency ditching was reported on the news all over the world. Okay, so in the ICAO test, if you were to pronounce the sentence like this, the plane was lifted out of the water, you may feel that you are pronouncing the ED, but if it's not heard, it can be marked down as a grammatical error and also a pronunciation error. Okay, so please try and remember to pronounce your ED endings clearly for your examiner. Okay, would you like to look at some more regular aviation verbs commonly mispronounced in the past simple tense? Okay, Faisal, I'll save the video, don't worry. Okay. All right, so listen to me. I'm going to pronounce some more words. And what I want you to do next to your handout or on a note paper, I want you to write down the word and I want you to put beside it whether it is a T, like a letter T sound, a D, or an id sound next to the word. Okay, so listen clearly and see if you can tell which sound you hear. Okay, the first one is decided. Decided. So mark next to it if it's a T, D, or id sound. Decided. Okay, the next one is crashed. Crashed. Okay, what sound is that? Is it D, T, or id? Crashed. Okay, turned. Turned. Okay, yeah, Vladimir, turned is a D sound, lowering the chin. Yeah, D. Turned. Okay. Taxied. 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 Okay. Communicated. Communicated. Okay, Vladimir, I think you're hearing a D sound, but if you listen closely, communicated. Communicated. What sound do you hear? Communicated. Communicated. It's an id sound. Okay. Descended. 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 Okay. Instructed. Instructed. Okay, don't worry, Vladimir. It's quite common for people to be unable to recognize the ending sounds. It takes a bit of practice. You'll have to listen to this video again and again until you can notice it. Fido Dido, Mike, you said descended is a D sound. It's an id sound. Id. Descended. Instructed. Lowered. Lowered is a D sound. Lowered. Okay. Raised. Raised. Deployed. Deployed. Skidded. Skidded. Veered off. Veered off. Do you know the meaning of veered off? Does anyone know the meaning of veered off? Yeah, Bashir, veered is a D sound, correct. Veered off is when your aircraft is going in one direction and then maybe you burst a tire, for example, or you skid on the runway and the plane goes in another direction, okay? That is veered off. So let's say a plane was making an emergency landing, the tire burst on touchdown and it started skidding all over the runway and then ended up veering off the runway. It means turning onto the grass. So the plane veered off. Okay, that's quite a common word in emergency situations with runway overruns or overshoots. Okay, so let me tell you the endings of those words so you've got the correct pronunciation for you to practice. So the first one was decided. So the ending sound is id, id, id. Crashed. The ending sound is t. In normal English, how often would you use the word veered off, like when you are driving to work or something? Yeah, okay. You might veer off the main road in order to go and pick something off, Adam. But let's focus on aviation in this session. Okay, so decided is an id sound. Crashed is a t sound. Turned is a d sound. Remember, turned, put your chin down. Taxied, okay, taxied to the runway. Communicated is an id sound. Descended is an id sound. Instructed is an id sound. Lowered is a d sound at the end. Raised is a d sound. Deployed is a d sound. Skidded is an id sound. And veered off is a d sound. Okay. Hi, Jean-Noel Conan. Okay. Now have you all repeated those? I think you must have tried at least. Which words were the most challenging for you to say? Would anyone like to admit which was the most challenging for you to pronounce? I think the id ones are quite straightforward. You can let me know which ones you find most challenging when you've practiced them a few times. Okay. Now I'll read out the words. Oh, no, crashed. Okay, crashed. You should be able to hear a very sharp t sound when I pronounce that. Crashed. Okay, so it's a t, not a d. Okay, crashed. Okay, we call that an unvoiced sound because the sound is coming from the front of our mouths. It's a t. The voiced sounds like the d is coming from down here. So when we say the d sound, you feel a vibration down here in your neck, around your Adam's apple here. Okay? Okay, when you say the t, there's no vibration at all. And id, there is some vibration too. Skidded is an id sound. lito, okay? Skidded, okay? Now, when you put these words into a sentence, it's often harder to pronounce them, or it's harder to remember to pronounce them correctly. Okay, so the pilot decided to return to the gate. The pilot decided to return to the gate. Okay, you have to remember to speak fluently as well in the ICAO test. So the pilot decided to return to the gate. If you want to ensure that you have pronounced the word correctly and you've been understood by your instructor, you can say the past simple verb a little bit slower than the rest. Okay, the pilot decided to return to the gate. You can repeat that. The pilot decided to return to the gate. Okay, the next one, the planes crashed into each other. The planes crashed into each other. Crashed is a t sound. The planes crashed into each other. They turned onto taxiway Alpha. They turned onto taxiway Alpha. Turned. Okay. Air China taxied to the ramp. Taxied to the ramp. Id sound. The pilot communicated his intentions to ATC. The pilot communicated his intentions to ATC. They descended to a safe altitude. They descended to a safe altitude. The ATC instructed him to descend to a lower altitude. Instructed. Okay. So how do you feel about these verbs so far? Can you hear the difference when I'm speaking? Give me a thumbs up or tell me if you can't identify the different sounds. There are rules for the pronunciation of ED endings, but to be honest, it's better for you just to learn these verbs and their correct pronunciation. Okay, so do you have any questions for me regarding these particular verbs? Thanks, Adam. Okay, any questions? You want to know the difference, Cerulean, between the pronunciation? 3 pronunciations for ED endings. T, which is voiceless, like I mentioned, it comes from here. T, t, t. Okay, so t. You're actually, your tongue, I would say, is right at the back of your front teeth when you say the t sound. And you're kind of blowing air. You're kind of blowing air through your teeth when you say the t sound. Okay. Vladimir, you're asking if you should stress the ED. You don't have to stress it, but I am intentionally stressing it so that you can hear the ending sound. Okay. When I pronounce these verbs, there will be no doubt in your mind that I'm using the past tense. But for non-native English speakers, it's quite a tough sound to pronounce. Okay, so that's why I'm exaggerating it slightly so that you can get the correct sound. Okay. So t is the first ending t, okay, as in crashed. Id as in decided, okay, and then deployed is a d sound at the end. So what you need to do is practice these verbs, and eventually it will come. I'll go over some more verbs with you, but it's best to start with just a few. I think we've got about 20 or so here that you can start pronouncing correctly. Yes, Cerulean, you have one of the rules, okay? If a verb ends in a ch or a sh in the infinitive, then it is pronounced as a t in the past simple. Okay? So for example, watch would also be watched. Okay? Finish, finished. Can you spot any rules for the other word endings? Okay, so if you look at an id verb like decided or instructed, decide, okay, decide in the infinitive ends in a d sound, okay, and instruct in the infinitive and ends in a t sound. So all those verbs that end in a d or a t sound are pronounced id in the past simple tense. Okay? Notice I say words ending in a t or a d sound, not a letter, a sound. Okay? Because decide itself ends in an e, but the sound we hear in English is a d. So decided, instructed. Okay? So, and then all the other verbs end in the d sound, which is the most challenging sound for most people to pronounce. Okay? So practice as much as you can of pronouncing the d sound. Okay, any more questions before we finish the session for tonight? Okay, well, we're going to continue with more pronunciation for the next session. And please let me know if this time slot is good or whether you would like to try a different time slot. Obviously, it's quite late for me in Hong Kong, but I don't mind at all. I can switch my time around within reason. Okay, so thank you everybody for watching and listening, and I want you to continue pronouncing these words between this lesson and the next. We'll try and have another session perhaps next Monday. Okay, so happy learning and thank you for coming in and attending the session, and I'll see you all soon. Roger. Okay, how you pronounce Roger? Roger. Okay, so Roger and out, and I'll see you next time, and I'll make the video available. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.